Okay, my talk is about grades and how it's just another way to impose conformity in education. So I've been thinking about what to focus my future blogs on, and something I read in somebody's blog, in Emily's blog, I don't know where she is, but she said that she focused on the idea that grades tend to reduce the quality of students' thinking, and I thought that was quite an interesting point to make. And I thought that I started to think about how grades are just another way to impose conformity in education, and my talk is going to focus on the idea that about conformity. My future blogs are going to be a little bit more about how reliable and valid grading systems are, and also the psychological effects behind grading, but today I'm going to focus on conformity. So if you look at student thinking as creative thinking, the idea that grades can reduce the quality of that thinking is the idea that conformity is quashing creativity. So the paper I'm going to focus on this week is by Sternberg. If you want the reference, because obviously I don't have PowerPoint, if you want the reference, just go on my blog, and I'll be focusing quite a lot on his work. And his argument is that current educational systems suppress creativity in favour of conformity. And in his paper, Sternberg describes creativity as a habit, and that educational systems today, they kind of inadvertently, it's not active, it's not conscious, but the grading systems inadvertently treat creativity as a bad habit. And I wanted to kind of demonstrate this point in statistical terms. If you think, statistics. If you think about means, I'm not going to talk about statistics, don't worry. If you think about means, think of creativity as a deviation from the mean, and then you think of conformity as an adherence to that mean. So conformity is the mean, and creativity is away from the mean. Somebody wants to go off on their own tangent. And then I thought about, what does mean mean? What's the definition of mean? Well, if you go in the dictionary, a synonym of mean is average. So conformity is encouraging students to be average in their education. And I thought an example of this is, how do you revise for an exam? Okay, what information do you learn when you go and revise for exam? Do you think, yeah, I'm interested in this, so I'm going to focus my learning on, say, in education, I really want to learn about conformity, so I'm going to focus all my learning power on conformity. But then, or am I going to go to Blackboard, look at the learning outcomes, and see, well, actually, no, there's a lot more. There's a lot more on a different concept. So would it be worth me revising just about learning more about conformity, or would it be more to my worth to revise things that are on the learning outcomes? And you learn well, or you revise simply what has been, you conform to learn, because if you try to be creative, you're not going to get credit. And that's how I think that grading systems are in education at the moment. And it's the same for coursework and essays. A lot of educators will say, well, okay, MCQ exams, it's not possible for students to show their creativity in MCQ exams. But that's why we put essays in exams. That's why we put assignments in. But you're still... Essays have marking criteria, essays have guidelines, and when you do an essay, how do you start writing an essay? Do you say, yes, this is the subject I want to talk about, or do you go on Blackboard, do you see, okay, I can write about this, this and this, or you go and ask your tutor, what do you expect of me to write in my essay? An example of this is, I don't know if anybody else did addictive behaviours last semester, but we had one 2-hour seminar and 1 2-hour lecture, and the seminar was basically devoted entirely to our assignment that we had to produce. And every week we would go in, and it got more and more where Steve and Simon, God bless them, they started to tell us, if you want an A, you write this and this and this, and that's it. And so I was given these guidelines that I had to abide by to get my A, and if I deviated from that, then the chances are that I wouldn't do very well. So, that, in my opinion, that epitomizes conformity. So that brings me to the question about university. I want to ask you a question. Have you come to university to learn, or have you come to university to get your degree? Because they're two different things in education now, aren't they? Getting your degree, getting the grades, or are you actually coming to learn about what you're passionate about? And going back to Sternberg and the paper that I was presenting, he said that often human raters of essays provide ratings that correlate more highly with machine grading than humans. So he's basically saying, you know, teachers, they're machines. You produce your work, they mark it mechanically, they tick off the categories, and you know, you get your grade. And they ask the students to conform by jumping through academic hoops that are necessary to acquire a good grade, but these hoops are highly insufficient to demonstrate their creative ideas. And I spoke to Jess about this yesterday, and he told me that it's so frustrating when students come to him and they say, is this going to be on the exam? Is this going to be on the exam? Does it matter? You know, and that demonstrates to Jess, obviously, that students aren't prepared to learn beyond the boundaries of an exam. And that also, I think, that epitomises conformity. The grading system today indicates what we must learn in order to do well and get a high-class degree. And any attempt by tutors to argue that our essay writing is the opportunity to demonstrate creativity is a little naive. Going back to Sternberg, he outlined several ways in which creativity can be encouraged. Number one, opportunities to engage in learning must be widely available. Number two, encouragement must be given when students attempt to be creative in their work. So if a student attempts to be creative, encourage it. And three, when students respond to that encouragement by being creative in their work, rewards should be offered to further encourage their creative thinking and behaviour. Now let's think about creative thinking in education. This is another example, if I sit and examine addictive behaviours and the focus of the module is about alcoholism, but actually what I'm really interested in is some new research that I found about gambling and the addictions of gambling, but I know that probably won't be on the exam, but because it really interests me, I spend all my revision power revising about that topic anyway. So I decided to spend much of my time revising about gambling, furthering my knowledge, even presenting a few ideas and a few hypotheses about, you know, the neurocognitive psychology behind gambling. Okay, so when I get to my essay question on my exam and it's about alcoholism, what do? Do I attempt to write about alcoholism and get a poor grade because I haven't revised it, or do I attempt to demonstrate my knowledge and my creativity in gambling? So I decided to write about gambling, and then I get a D because I didn't abide by the marking criteria. So does this adhere? Right, okay, so this doesn't adhere to the marking criteria. So did it give me opportunities to demonstrate my creativity in that exam? Did it encourage me? And did it reward me? Was my D grade rewarded? Is that rewarding my creativity by writing about gambling? It's not. It's just, if anything, it's punishing me for trying to be creative. So Sternberg said that educational practices that may seem to promote learning may inadvertently suppress creativity for the same reasons that environmental circumstances can suppress any habit. So standardized tests today, they're not necessarily bad or wrong, they're just really limited. They just, you know, and if teachers could broaden the boundaries of education and the boundaries that are presented by grades, then maybe this would give room for students to be a little bit more creative. And I've said as my final quote on here, just give them opportunities without the boundaries that grades represent. So this is going to be the focus of my future blog, so if anybody's interested in reading more about grades in education and what limits grade represents, then read my blog. Thank you. Is anybody? Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I have a comment or a question, really. How many of you would be satisfied with this class if it was simply pass-fail? Pass-fail? But the whole module would be pass-fail. If you do what you're asked to do, if you do the things that are...
So pass would be 100%, fail is nothing.
Well, there's no grade. You either pass or you don't pass.
Okay.
When you drive your car and you go get a driver's license, it's pass-fail. You drive the car and the person says, yeah, that's good enough, I'll give you your license. lot of the resistance to change isn't necessarily institutional, because as soon as I said that, everybody said, no, is that going to give me a good grade?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Welsh back they do is pass-fail at the moment, and they want to change that to grades because it's not acknowledging the people that do better. So they're just getting a pass when like an A grade student could be getting the same as like a C grade student.
So,
But they put more work in to get the better grade.
is this about grades or is it about learning?
But they learn and they put in the effort.
So?
Someone who's getting the worst grade isn't necessarily
They've learned as well.
not been as good.
Excuse me. They have though, because see now you've got like I'm not hanging on, but say I'm dyslexic and I would put in 3 or 4 hours of revision time. My revision would be up in the exam. But I'd put my hours in, I put my
Yeah.
time in, and it wouldn't be shown. But just because my grade would not benefit me that way, but I did put the work in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know it's academic snobbery as well. And that's a hate I've got. It's comparing an A with D. The amount of work and effort put in. It's just that so maybe an A student maybe is able to transfer and write better, be more articulate, rather than a B student.
Yeah.
A B students.
I think as well, just quickly going back to what you said about, oh yeah, but you should be able to distinguish the really good from the good. Well, isn't that going back to competition? Why does there need to be competition in education? Isn't it? It should be about learning, not competition. Go on.
Actually, just thinking about what Jessie just said then, I would be happy with a pass-fail, because I think if you turn up and do the work, you are encouraged to take more risks and like in pop speeches and things like that, that was, it's been changed about 1 million times, but at one point it was pass-fail. And, you know, I explored more and did more then in pop speeches because I knew that I was allowed to, and as long as I did what I was supposed to do, I wasn't going to be judged on it.
Interesting that you say about risk taking as well, because going back to the paper that I was reading, he talks a lot about how creativity is encouraged by people who would take risks, because people who take risks are mostly the people that do great in the world, aren't they? That, you know, if you don't take a risk, you're not going to get very far.
I experienced conformity when I was at school, and I took art A-level, and took it upon myself to study Van Gogh and his style. Anyway, I did a painting with using all the little brush strokes, and my art teacher came up and told me, that's wrong. And I said, how can that be wrong? It's art, it's whatever I want it to be. Anyway, I lasted about a week after that, and I thought he was an idiot and left.
I think the thing that I picked up the first time we did this class, somebody did something about the Socratic method of learning. And I think this gets at the heart of what we're talking about. You know, when do little children stop asking why?
Yeah.
As soon as they go to school. We got to move.